Good afternoon and welcome into Live Ball. Paige Dower here to talk all things Tennessee basketball and Lady Vols basketball. It's a huge rivalry weekend on Rocky Top when they welcome in Alabama and the Vanderbilt Commodores. For Tennessee, it's a chance to bounce back into the win column both for the men's and women's teams. For Rick Barnes and company, it's a tough loss on the road against Missouri. And then for the Lady Vols, maybe you feel a little bit positive about how their body language looked against the LSU Tigers, yet they let another top 10 potential win slip from their fingers in the second half of those matchups. But we have so much to get into when we look to these rivalry matchups this weekend. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm Paige Dower. This is Live Ball.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dower, presented by Harper Audi.
Tennessee is in the midst of a 5-game winning streak. Really, it's the longest since you can go back to the beginning of the 2000s when Alabama was on a 7-game winning streak. And of course, the last time the Crimson Tide made their way to Rocky Top, it's the buzzer-beating three-pointer by Jemai Meshack from the Pat Summit logo on the Summit floor when he just walked it off against the Crimson Tide. And for them, history is also nice when you look to what they were able to do earlier in this season when at the time Charles Bediako was on the team thanks to a TRO, but that was since denied. But Tennessee was able to win that matchup. And when you look to what they need to do in this matchup against Nate Oates' Crimson Tide, it's really going to come down to rebounding, being able to execute in transition, and getting those three-pointers when you have the opportunity. And I guess it goes without saying, you certainly need to stifle the turnovers that Tennessee's having lately. But when we look a little into this matchup, Alabama's coming into Tennessee on a 7-game winning streak. I think part of the schedule sets it up perfectly for them, but also they were able to get a double overtime win over John Calipari's Arkansas Razorbacks. But as soon as we get Chris Stewart, the voice of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, in with us, we will talk all things Alabama and Tennessee. And I believe we have Chris Stewart on the phone with us now.
You do.
Yes,
How are
good.
you?
It's good to hear from you, Chris. I enjoyed having you on during the football season. It's nice to have you here for the basketball season.
Thank you, Paige. Always glad to be on with you.
Absolutely. It's been so interesting the way that Alabama's been able to mount this recent winning streak that they've had, and it's not come without a lack of changes to their roster, whether it be injury or Charles Bediako no longer being on the team now. What's impressed you most with what Alabama's been able to do in the midst of this winning streak?
I think their ability to kind of adjust, persevere. Um, yes, Bediako um, was a guy that I thought was going to be a huge difference maker for them, but not in terms of being the star or the lead guy at any point. What he gave them, even though they were only 3-2 in the 5 games that he played, was some depth behind Aiden Sherrill, or an opportunity for them to go big and play Bediako at the 5 and Sherrill at the 4 and have them on the floor at the same time. Because the versatility of Sherrill, you could play him at the 4 comfortably with Charles at the 5. And
And as you make your way to Rocky Top, does the buzzer beater by Jemai Meshack kind of flood the memory at all? We may have lost Chris Stewart at the moment, maybe a connection issue that we're having there. But I would imagine if I'm Chris Stewart and company, I'm probably thinking of that because it's been such physical matchups the last handful of times. You could even look to the one in Alabama where we're watching some of those highlights now from their last meeting, and a lot of it was dictated by tempo. What I find interesting about this matchup as we wait for Chris Stewart to rejoin us is Tennessee is 16th in the SEC when it comes to their pace that they dictate. In simpler terms, they are last in the SEC when it comes to the speed in which they play with, which is a complete contrast to the way that Alabama likes to play. They like to get out in transition. They like to connect on those threes, and you can see that by the high volume of triples that they put up per game. So I think it'll be interesting if Tennessee can dictate the tempo, slow things down. I think that's when Tennessee usually is at its best. I know this squad wanted to be a bit of a quicker team on offense as they entered the 2025-26 campaign, but I think what suited them is when they can kind of get into their sets and, manipulate the defense a little bit. And then you have such strong post players from you guys like Jalen Carey and Felix Okpara. You have Dwayne Brown at times, who's really come on strong as a freshman. We've heard many times before Rick Barnes talk about what a pleasant surprise he has been. And I think that actually matches up really nicely when we look to the challenge of Alabama's front court. You could look to Taylor Bowen. He has been a really strong physical presence for Alabama, and it'll certainly be a test on defense for Tennessee when you're going up against somebody who's 6'10" and has a really strong force on the inside, especially when it comes to his soft touch. Like he just at times looks really very effective and almost like seamless the way that he's able to, as I am leaning back in my chair, looks really very effective when he's like trying to get these floaters and soft touch baskets to fall. And I think where Tennessee might have success against that is if they can get Felix Okpara going when it comes to protecting the rim there. But I still believe we are waiting for Chris Stewart to rejoin us. I'll test us one more time live on air. Chris, can you hear me? Okay. No, that's okay. We were certainly talking about just a moment ago Taylor Balboa and what he's been able to provide the Alabama Crimson Tide,
Yeah.
specifically on offense. It looks like he just has such a nice touch and provides a really great interior presence for Alabama. How crucial has his production been as of late for Alabama?
No, I agree. And getting Taylor back and healthy is something that's a major part of this team being um, who they're capable of being, because he is a guy that defensively can help you. He does average 7 points and almost 5 rebounds per game, but he is um, I think next to Sherelle, the top shot blocker that they have at 23 a game, and he hasn't, as the numbers indicate. I mean, he's only played 23 ball games with 11 starts. So even though he's behind in some minutes at 6'9" and a wingspan that's just ridiculous, he's able to help you um, as a shot blocker, as a defender as a whole. He's not a very thick player. He's pretty thin. My shadow may be heavier than he is, but
No.
he is a very gifted player and defender. But he does have the ability to step out and shoot the three effectively. So he's a tough matchup. Which, despite only having Sherelle as a true rim protector, a true big, if you will, that plays the bulk of the minutes. Noah Williamson's a 7 footer, but he hasn't played a lot. He's kind of struggled to um, get going since coming in from Bucknell, where he was actually the Patriot League Player of the Year. He's just really had a tough time adjusting to the speed and the pace of the SEC. But despite um, Sherelle being the only true big playing considerable minutes, whether you're talking about um, Bol Bowen, whether you're talking about Amari Allen, whether you're talking about London Jemison, those are other guys who are really versatile, can play anything from um, basically the two to the or the one to the four in the case of Allen, but uh, 2 to 5 probably in the case of the others. Bama likes to run anyway. They like to play up tempo, and when they go truly, I guess by definition, small, they still have the ability to rebound. They still have size, but they can get it and go as well as anybody.
And we're joined by Chris Stewart, the voice of the Crimson Tide. And as we were working through a bit of our technical difficulties a moment ago, I was talking a little bit about the front court for both teams, and you mentioned some of the bigs. How do you think Alabama has responded so far, or maybe even looking to the first matchup between Tennessee and Alabama when it comes to playing a very physical game, which I think Tennessee has begun
Yeah.
to really pride itself on, especially when you look to what Jalen Carey and Dwayne Brown do in tandem? How is Alabama being able to counter that or respond to it?
didn't handle it well the first time. Got out rebounded by 9, I think, in that game, and um, it's where I really believe two guys that were missing in the first game will be. Uh, the outcome may not be any better, but he gives Bama a lot better chance when you talk about having Amari Allen available and also um, Aiden Holloway. Uh, all different players, but two key pieces for the Crimson Tide. And there's no question that Bama's got to do a better job on Ament. I mean, he gets to the free throw for 9 shots there and 10 of 20 from the field. Just such a tough guard for Alabama. But Amari Allen at 6'8", 210 plus gives them a better chance of physically matching up with him, even though it can't be just one guy. I think he gives them a much better chance. But as we talk about Amen, I mean, Gillespie was equally impressive. 24 points in the first game and 4 assists. Um, really able to be highly effective against Alabama. Nobody else had more than 8, but again, those two were so good against the Tide that there's got to be some help for Phylon, assuming he's able to go in this one, and I do think he will be. Um, but LeBaron at 26 points in the first matchup, 7 assists, has got to get some help to go along with him.
You mentioned some great points, Chris, and maybe a one more note on Nate Ament, just so you can, or the Vol fans can hear from the other perspective. What is it about the style in which Nate Ament has been able to play these last handful of games, really since they faced Florida in that loss, that makes it so difficult to guard him? I'd imagine it's maybe the variety of scoring that he can provide, but when you're calling these games and you have a great perspective from it, I mean, what kind of
Yeah.
trouble is he giving these teams?
Well, I mean, it's the size for one thing, but the size that allows him to look like a big, but the ability to shoot it and handle the basketball like a guard or as well as any guard. And um, what's he averaging? 18 a game and
Yeah.
6.5 boards. I just think he's such a tough guard. He's dangerous from deep, even though he's only a 33% shooter. That's enough that you've got to respect it. But it's his ability 15 feet and in to stop on a dime, to rise up and pull up for the jumper when you think he's trying to get to the rim. Just just a really tough arsenal. Knows the game, plays it smart, plays it with a level of toughness and physicality on both ends that just makes him a very difficult matchup.
You mentioned LeBaron Philon just a moment ago. Of course, he wasn't in the last game against Mississippi State. I believe it was an undisclosed injury, so it'll be interesting to see if he's able to return in this next matchup. But Aiden Holloway, he certainly stepped up against the Bulldogs. When they're going, let's just maybe look at Holloway since we have maybe more recent data on him. What impressed you
Yeah.
most with his ability to step up, to get those assists, to make those long range triples against the Bulldogs that might come in handy against Tennessee?
All of the above. The thing about him, his last 2 games may have been his best games. When he played at LSU, he defended at such a high level, but he is not a big a big player. He is um, learning how to play though on both ends, and 16 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. He almost got the triple double, which would have been unheard of for him. He turned it over a little more than Nate would have liked with 4 turnovers, but as much as he handled the ball, as much as he was involved, and as much as he did in other areas, he certainly made it work to his benefit, despite giving it up a little more than Coach would have liked. But um, his range is, I'm not going to say limitless, but he shot it from the he has made baskets in the flow of the offense from the border of the state. If you've seen the logo
Yes.
at Coleman Coliseum, you've got the outline of the state of Alabama and it doesn't stretch as long, east to west as the Tennessee logo does, but it which probably makes that a little more impressive what he was able to do. He's made one from extreme East Alabama, one from extreme West Alabama, depending on which end he was going to, but literally feet on the logo both times, and uh, exceptional range for him. He really, to say the least, can stretch the defense, but he is also, despite being small, very crafty at getting to the rim and being able to finish shots. He takes some angles and puts up some shots from around the rim that we don't think mathematically have a chance to go in, but somehow it does.
And of course, when we look to the last stretch that we are in now before they turn their attention to the SEC tournament, of course, both of these teams want to continue to win out to maintain their position to get the double bye in the SEC tournament. And what I've noticed about Nate Oates when he's talking in the post-game presser, or even going back to Rick Barnes after the Missouri game, is sometimes 40-minute games continues to evade both of these teams. Nate, despite
Yeah.
the win, sounded a little bit downturned, not being able to have the same leadership or execution in the second half against Mississippi State. I guess from your perspective, what's preventing them from playing a full 40? And do you think this big rivalry weekend will just take care of itself?
The team that comes the closest to playing 40 minutes is going to win, which I know is not a great revelation by any stretch. But I do think, in Alabama's case against Mississippi State, um, frankly, I think they got a little bored, which you've got to overcome complacency. But their largest lead in that game, if I'm not mistaken, was 39 with um, probably 18 minutes to go in the game, and the foot did come off the gas. So it was, actually, it was 39 points with 14:45 to go
Okay.
that Bama had its biggest lead, and State never led in the ball game. So, uh, you know, they did lose focus, and that came on both the defensive and offensive ends. There was a 7-minute stretch without a field goal, and still scored 100 points. So it tells you how good they were for a good bit of that game. I mean, good grief, shot um, what 60%, almost over 59% from three in the first half, and despite shooting 26%, still were you know never in danger of losing that game or losing the lead. So impressive, but you got to do it for a lot longer against a Tennessee team as talented as Coach Barnes' squad is, especially there at Thompson Bowling.
And one more note, Chris, before we let you go, when you look to this matchup this weekend, what would be a defining moment or key to the game for Alabama to continue their winning streak but snap the winning or the losing streak against Tennessee?
Yeah, I think matching them on the boards, but also keeping, uh, I think it's foolish to think you're going to keep both Amen and Gillespie uh, away from 20. But if you can hold one to around 20 and the other below that number, then they'll have a far better chance of coming out with a victory. Won't be easy, as you said, but you know, the cigars that may have been bought for a win are decaying.
Oh, no.
No matter how much you try to no matter how much you try to keep them fresh, those are flaking up a bit. So if they're going to be used, you better find a way to end that streak soon.
I love that, Chris. It's great talking to you and looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
You too, Paige. Thanks so much.
Of course. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit Lady Vols and Vanderbilt on the other side of this break.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there, calling me
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile. With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Not to mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen. And I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dower, presented by Harper Audi.
Welcome back into Live Ball. Paige Dower here, presented by Harper Audi and Smile Doctors. When we were in our last segment, we talked to the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, and what he thought might be the key to the game. And he says it's not a revolutionary thought, but it will take a full 40-minute game, which the last two outings for both of these teams, I believe they both have been the Alabama Ravens just been in the winning column. And then when we turn our attention to the other side of the court, it's the Lady Volunteers who are back home inside Food City Center this time, welcoming in the Vanderbilt Commodores for the regular season finale. And truly, it's the last chance this Lady Vols team has to snap their 5-game losing streak. I guess the positive is their body language was better against the LSU Tigers and the number 6 LSU Tigers, but still, a win evaded them, and yet another top 10 win slips through their fingers. Maybe they have a chance to do it at home against Vanderbilt. Never say never. And that's where we bring on Elena Morris, Vandy 24/7. Elena, it's so good to see you. Thank you for making time for us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it could be a night or day. It's a night and day difference between Tennessee and Vanderbilt, especially when you look to what they've been able to do this season, whether at home or away, but specifically for Vandy at home. For the first time in program history, they remain undefeated at home. Alina, what would you notice as the main contributor as to why Vandy's been able to be so successful at home?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for Caleb Blake so far. She's averaging just under 27 points per game. And then I think the big thing this year is having a true point guard in Aubrey Galvin. Like, she just really opens up the floor and makes it kind of slow that offense.
You mentioned Michaela Blakes. I mean, she's had a sensational career, specifically here in her sophomore campaign. When you watch her on the court, game in and game out, what continues to impress you the most is just how effective she is from scoring. I think she's 46% from the floor, and she's doing it at such a successful clip. I can't remember how many points she's averaging, but I mean, she is just having a sensational sophomore campaign.
I think the biggest thing is just the way she does it. Like, she's not just a one-dimensional scorer. She can do it at all 3 levels. Like, she can get downhill and attack the rim. But last night against Alabama, she had 6 3-pointers. So it's just the way that she can get scoring done in such an effective manner. And that's what sticks out to me the most is just, I mean, she can pull up from the mid-range too. And so she's just so dangerous to stop because you don't know where she wants to attack and win. And that's why, I mean, she's just one of the toughest players to defend. She leads the country in scoring for a reason.
She also seems like a very team player type of teammate. How much does that have a ripple effect on this team and the ability to continue to spread the floor and just have that connectivity throughout the entire game?
I think that has a lot to do with it. I asked her about a stat last night because it honestly just impressed me. She's the second player this century to have 5 straight 30-point games against ranked opponents. And I just asked her, I was like, do you think about this kind of stuff at all when you go home? And she started laughing and said no. And Shea Ralph interrupted and was like, I just have to tell you, like, Michaela will score 50 or 3 points. She doesn't care. She just wants to win. I think that just kind of speaks to the person that she is, that if she's got to score 50, which we saw her do that twice last year, she'll do it. But it doesn't really matter to her at the end of the day. She's going to do what her team needs of her to win.
And she's also, I think, leading the country in points per game. So it's so interesting to see the way that she wants to share the ball, but if the team needs her to take over these games, she absolutely can. Does that allow this team to have that added wrinkle to maintain successful, not only at home, but also on the road? I mean, they're a ranked team for a reason.
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing is just she has had so many different looks thrown at her this year, and she's been able to figure them all out. I think the lowest amount of points she scored in a game this season was 14, and that's because she was in foul trouble against another amazing team in Michigan. And so just her production is really what sticks out, and her ability to read defenses. I think that her basketball IQ is just honestly off the charts.
It is. And I guess maybe when we go to the X's and O's a little bit of this game and we look at what Vanderbilt's been able to do from the field, I wonder if the Lady Vols get a little nervous because I'm looking at their last handful of games, whether that be LSU, South Carolina, UConn, or Texas. All of those teams, which are about 50% or better from the field, they end up shooting above that average, either by the end of the game or in multiple quarters against the Lady Vols. And I'm thinking Vanderbilt might have similar success unless something changes in the post for Tennessee. But what have you noticed throughout the season that allows them to be 47% or better from the field?
I think that this year they just have different players who can do it. They're averaging, I believe, around 85 points per game. Last night, Sasha Washington was 3 assists away from a triple double. So that's just another option that Vanderbilt has inside. She's a fifth-year senior with experience. Justine Passat, a former Tennessee player. I know she's going to be anticipating this return back
Yes.
to Knoxville, but she has taken just a massive leap from last season. She was averaging 3 points a game last year. Her role was kind of undefined, and this year she's leading the SEC in three-pointers made. And so her growth has also been a huge factor to why this team has had success this season.
I think you might have mentioned it too, but I think she's averaging, what, 7 rebounds a game? I mean, how much does that defensive effort, or I guess whether on offense or defense, really change the outcomes of these games sometimes when she's able to go and grab critical rebounds?
It's big. I mean, last year that's just not what you kind of saw out of her, and so that's another thing that Shea Ralph has talked about this season. When you watch Justine Passat, like she's not just a scorer anymore, and she'll tell you that. She's a better rebounder, and if you look, she's a better passer. She moves the ball a lot better. I think that her summer she put in a lot of work, and you can really see that paying off with the season she's had. She's just not a one-dimensional player anymore.
Do you think that might come down to one of the defining factors in this game? I mean, I know Tennessee loves to shoot their threes, but they had 43 rebounds against LSU last night, which is a little bit above their average right now. Is this going to be those classic games where it just comes down to who's more aggressive and physical when it comes to rebounds?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a big part of it because, Vanderbilt, as well as they've done this season, that has been one of their struggles is getting on the boards. And when they play bigger teams, like they had struggled against Kentucky in their first meeting. And the thing that really changed that game was the amount of turnovers that Vanderbilt was able to force. So that's kind of where they make up with it is on the defensive end is they might not be the biggest team on the floor, but they're going to try to turn you over and make up for that lack of size a little bit.
And then on the Lady Vols perspective, they finally got Mia Paldo, their point guard, back in rotation. And I think she looked really good to start. And I think the Lady Vols are really a completely different team when she's able to get going from distance. And hopefully now with a game back under her belt, she'll look how she did in the beginning of the SEC when I think she briefly was leading the league in scoring, or at least in the top five. What have you noticed, maybe through your own film study or just watching the sport, about what that young freshman point guard is able to give Tennessee and maybe the challenge for Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I try to watch a lot of basketball, whether that be just any team that's on, but I love watching the SEC. And whenever Vanderbilt's not playing, I'll sit down and turn on whatever game is on. And Mia Paldo has really impressed me. I think that she doesn't play like a freshman, and she just kind of has that confidence. Like when you go on the court, or when she goes on the court, you kind of look at her and you can tell like she knows that she's supposed to be there. I think that she moves the ball really well, and when she can get her 3-point shot going, especially from the top of the key, that makes her especially dangerous. And I think that it's going to be a really exciting matchup between her and Aubrey Galvin, two of the
Hmm.
better freshmen in the SEC. I'm really looking forward to watching those two face off.
What do you think is the strength for Aubrey and maybe how she'll pair up in this matchup?
Aubrey is very quick, and I know Mia is too, but for Aubrey, she just has the ability to stay in front of everyone. And when you're going against a point guard like Mia, that is extremely important. And so her ability to do that, and also she's a pretty good defender too. And so you can kind of see her hands constantly getting in the passing lanes. I think that could be a big factor. But for Aubrey, just the way she moves the ball. And so I guess on the other side, it'll be interesting to see how Mia defends that because Aubrey loves to play with a lot of flash. I don't know how, much you've seen of her this season, but she loves her behind the back pass, no look pass, just kind of likes to put on a show a little bit. And so it'll be interesting to see how Tennessee kind of defends the way that she likes to play as well.
Yeah, I know. I think whatever Vanderbilt's been able to do this season, there's a highlight reel somewhere in any game that they're playing, so it's hard to miss them. Elena, when we look at this game one more time, what would you say is going to be the main key for a win for Vanderbilt for them to close out the season on this high note?
I think it'll honestly come down to the defense. I think that you know what you're getting out of Michaela Blakes. You know how Aubrey Galvin can move the basketball, but Vanderbilt needs to be able to defend. They've had lapses in the SEC where teams will get open and Vanderbilt's rotations were a little bit slow, things like that. And Tennessee loves to get out and run, as you mentioned. They like to shoot the three. They like to go out and try to score and play in those high scoring games. And so does Vanderbilt. I mean, just if you look at the box scores, they are also like to play fast. And so I think it's going to come down to what other team, which team locks in defensively more and can make the other one just try to score, make those possessions longer on offense and make them a lot more difficult than they probably need to be.
Absolutely. Well, Elena, I really appreciate your time. Where can people find your work if they want to stay up to date on the women's basketball team for the Vanderbilt Commodores?
Yeah, all my work is at Vandy247 on their website, and then on X, Twitter, at Elena M. Morris. I post all of my game updates, articles on there, and I look forward to having some updates this weekend in Knoxville.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look forward to meeting you in person here on Saturday when they clash inside Food City Center. Elena, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to meeting you.
Of course. All right. When we come back, we'll have a quick final thoughts on the Tennessee Volunteers and the Lady Volunteers as they get ready for a big rivalry weekend on Rocky Top. We'll be right back.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there, calling me home.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile. With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Not to mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen. And I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dower, presented by Harper Audi.
Welcome back into Live Ball. Paige Dower here, presented by Harper Audi and Smile Doctors. Harper Audi and Harper Tennessee Athletics. And this one from the student talking all things Tennessee Alabama basketball. And we'll talk about the Volunteers and the Commodores on the programs here. there was any win streak going in this series back in the beginning of the 2000s when Alabama was able to win 7 straight. So that might be the key to the game for that matchup. And then for the Lady Volunteers, it's been well documented. This is a team that is in a 5-game losing skid. They've now lost 8 of their last 10 matchups, I believe, if my math is correct. And a lot of it's come down to poor second half adjustment, specifically in the third quarter. It happened again against LSU where they get outscored by double digits in that frame and really not able to mount, or there wasn't enough time to really mount a complete comeback. They cut it down to 10 with about 3 or so minutes left in the game, but at that point it really kind of felt like it was a little bit out of reach. And now you're welcoming in a Vanderbilt team who's undefeated at home. They're riding that after winning at home last night against Alabama to come here on Rocky Top to continue their winning streak. And you look at what Michaela Blake's for Vanderbilt, what she's been able to provide this team. She's averaging better than 20 points a game on 47% shooting from the floor, and she can do it in multiple ways. And as we heard from Elena Morris, if she's not the one that's scoring, she doesn't mind sharing the ball a bit and being that team player. And that's something that will put a lot of stress on Tennessee and how they can adjust on defense to whoever has the hot hand and being able to get to their spots quickly, which I think they did a little bit better at that against LSU. They were certainly more active, and as I like to say, they didn't look planted on the court. They had some good movement to them, and I think even when LSU had their 16-2 run in the first half, I mean, Tennessee certainly responded and didn't play themselves out of it really probably until the last couple of minutes. But I don't think you're going to be able to stop Michaela Blakes, but you can certainly try to contain her and slow her down a little bit, despite being the sensational sophomore player that she is. If Mia Paldo can get back and just maybe get Tennessee more of a perimeter presence and not be someone who's aggressive and driving in the lane and running the risk of getting her shots blocked, as she is a little bit of an undersized point guard, I think Tennessee has a good chance to maybe get a pretty loss. I'm not sure if I'll take the Lady Volunteers in this matchup, but I think it'll be a close game, especially if they stay locked in, because as we've talked a lot about on this show, it is certainly not a talent issue for the Lady Volunteers. It is an execution and mindset issue, but I think what we saw from them and their non-negotiables that they had with the team heading into the LSU matchup, hopefully they can play a little inspired getting ready for the game this weekend, but should be an exciting one as they welcome in both of their biggest rivals essentially to Food City Center. We'll have all of the post-game reports on that, and I know Rick Barnes and company are talking right now to the media ahead of this Vanderbilt matchup, so I'll be at practice shortly after this. And then Karen Weekly's Lady Volunteer softball team, they're finally home this weekend as well, so we'll have a lot going on our website, fulldisclosurepro.com, or over on our YouTube channel, Full Disclosure Pro, so you aren't going to want to miss any of the things that we're talking about this weekend, and I'll have a recap on this weekend as well. I'll talk to you guys again this weekend.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dower, presented by Harper Audi.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there. Calling me home.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile. With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Not to mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen. And I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dower, presented by Harper Audi.